work on mixed media morsels. Kat Hand has a series going called Mixed Media Morsels, where she is demonstrating different types of mixed media on the pages in her little journal, and then she invites everybody to follow along. There's a link to her channel in the description box below. However, I am going to call this video one of Meri's morsels. This is a Meri mixed media morsel. A Meri morsel. I was watching some of the videos and I thought, and you know, every time you think, listen up, because your mind is creating. And that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to do a Meri morsel here in my little mixed media morsel book. I'm going to do it on the next 2 pages. And I'm going to be working on the back of this one, which was the Technique 5, was the tissue paper background. Now, in order to do this, the very first thing that I want to do is gesso it. And I'm going to use black gesso. The next thing that I'm going to do is I have some glycerin. I'm going to put the glycerin in my fine liner. This is a standard tip. I lost the little orange collar that goes on it. I didn't lose it. It's here somewhere. I just misplaced it. I'm going to put some glycerin in here. This is a 6-ounce bottle. I haven't purchased any for several months, but I got it at the pharmacy at my grocery store. I'm not going to fill it completely full, maybe about half full. I don't think I'll use all of it. But I happened on this 4th grade reader that I got at the thrift store for 99 cents. I'm sure because it's getting old and it's got a worn cover, but it's in pretty good condition. Look at these pictures. Aren't they cool? Practice makes perfect. Oh, and look. He's drawing a picture. Oh, how cool is that? I haven't really looked at this too much. This book is stitched. You see the stitching in there. American Book Company. Arranged and graded for the use of schools. I want to see if there's a copyright. Copyright is 1873. Oh my goodness. This is not going to be altered. This is New Graded Series 4th Reader, Lesson 68, I believe. By and by, but I love this little sentence here. There's a little mischief maker that is stealing half our bliss, but I love the little mischief maker. So I think that I'm just going to pull that out, not as a quote, but as a phrase. And I'm going to write that on here, and I'm going to write it with my glycerin, and I'm going to work in landscape mode. And I may do some whoops, see, I already got some glycerin on there. I have to be careful because, let me wipe that off. I don't want too much glycerin. I don't know how, this may be fairly runny. I don't know. I have never tried this. You're going to see. I don't know if I can write with it. So I'm just going to put little, I don't know if you can see, I can see it, but I'm writing little mischief, and I think I'm just going to write the word maker here. I think I'm just going to put a line, and one thing about this glycerin is that it flows smoothly. You aren't going to have to worry about it clogging up your nozzle if you have it in your fine liner. Now I can see what I'm doing. I don't know if you can see it. It's pretty spotty. I'm just going to do some curves around that line that I put in there. And this is not drying out. Glycerin is an oil base. And I have to give partial credit to the Frugal Crafter, because what I'm going to do is I have some embossing powder that I don't use very much because these are brighter colors and I just don't use green and orange. This kind of reminds me of Halloween. I may not put those two together. I have sand here. Let's do the sand one. And the reason that I need to give credit to the Frugal Crafter is one of her videos is where I first learned that you can use glycerin as an embossing base. Now, this glycerin hopefully is on here in a small enough stream that it will not chip off. It may not, I don't know. I've had it before where my embossing has chipped off if I get my glycerin too thick on the page, because it puddles. And in order to avoid that, what I usually end up doing is putting a matte medium over it. Where I spilt that glycerin at first. Let's see if I can't brush some of that off. Let's see, this is a T. Okay, let's bring this back over here. Now I also got some, it looked like I dribbled some in here. Let's just kind of clean this up. This is more a technique for art journals, and if you don't really care if there's a area that's not perfect. Okay, I'm going to emboss it and we'll see what happens here. Let's wipe off some of that oil, especially in here. Just kind of buff it off even. Oh, I am liking this. Except for I goofed in there. And see, I've kind of rubbed off that. But that's okay. That's actually, I kind of think I could chip some of that off. There. A little bit. Now I could do something down in here, but I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it. This was my first page. This is my first attempt with trying to write with glycerin on a gessoed surface. And then I embossed it with sand embossing paper. Now I have another page. I think I'm going to write on here again. I'm going to put this, again, I'll say this is not something if you're doing card making or something that you want embossed professionally. This is not a technique for that. This is a messy technique when you want to play in your art journal. That's my attitude. Let's see. This time I think I'll use the pretty sparkly green because I don't use this much. Okay. So I'm just going to shake this off. See, I still got some in here that needs to be brushed. Let's emboss this. Okay. I'm going to set this aside and let it dry. I wanted to work on the back of it, but I think that I'll get out another sheet. But I just want to do some fun, fine line fun on here. You guys know how I love my fine line fun. And I'm going to say, keep your lines thin as possible. I'm going to take my brush and just come down over this way with that where I got really thick lines. Maybe I'll do the same here. This is just more fun. And also I want to emboss on a surface that's not gessoed. Okay, we'll leave it that way. And I think, look, see what's happening? That glycerin is soaking through to the back because it's an oil base. But I don't think that's going to affect my, I don't think, it'll probably help my embossing because it won't be as thick. Yeah, I'm just going to put it over here. Okay. Let's see what happens. Oh, that's going to be pretty. Okay, let's emboss this and see what happens. Now, I think on this one, I think I actually achieved prettier lines than I did on these. Although these aren't bad. These are my first attempts. These are scratchy. You know, hey, these are experiments. And this is kind of like a glittery. I don't want to rub that too much because I think it's still wet or still needs to be embossed a little bit more. But I like the lines on here. But it did soak through to the other side, so this will either have to be gessoed or covered or something. What I'm going to do on this, I have some of this Wild Rose Radiant Watercolor, Dr. P.H. Martin's. And I'm not going to put it directly on my page. I'm going to put it over here on the side. Let's try this. Okay, I'm going to set this aside. I really like this. It's not completely dry. When it's dry, it'll probably dry to a lighter color like in there. What I'm going to do is this little mischief maker one. I'm going to see if I can't color some of that embossing. Fun. I know that these two colors don't really go together, but I have really had fun doing these. This one's still wet. And then this one. And so the technique that I used here was that I put some glycerin in a standard tip FineLine Paint Applicator. You may want to use the fine tip if you're going to do a lot of fancy writing. And I used embossing powders over the glycerin. I will say again that I learned that from the Frugal Crafter. That's not my original thought. I learned it from Lindsay at the Frugal Crafter. I do like using my glycerin as an embossing base because I don't do professional embossing. I don't emboss on cards, or I use my embossing in my art journals. And I use it in more of a messy process and more of a mixed media process. I would say that if you're going to do embossing like on wedding invitations or that type of thing, that you probably will want to get you a professional embossing pen. It will probably give you unless you want to send out artsy wedding invitations. And then I use some Dr. P.H. Martin's Wild Rose watercolor to color the base. This is an ungessoed page. These two pages were gessoed with Liquitex black gesso. The ungessoed page, we noted that the glycerin tended to soak through. This is even pretty, isn't it? I like this just like it is. I like that effect of the watercolor soaking through even. Probably because that is, well, partially because it's glycerin on there. So this was Mary's brainstorm for today. I was just wanting to see how I could write with glycerin in my FineLine Paint Applicator. I do like it for, like I said, for art journaling. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you on the next page.